Demonstrations in solidarity with the LA protests in Los Angeles against the Trump administration's immigration policies are gaining traction in other cities. In New York, where thousands of people demonstrated, police arrested dozens of protesters blocking traffic, while dozens more were arrested in Chicago and we understand also in Atlanta. Earlier, a U.S. judge denied an emergency request from California's governor to block the use of federal troops President Trump sent to Los Angeles to quash the protests. Gavin Newsom said Mr. Trump's decision was illegal. But speaking to troops at Fort Bragg, Mr. Trump said deploying the Marines and the National Guard was necessary to stop what he called a foreign enemy from conquering Los Angeles.
Generations of Army heroes did not shed their blood on distant shores only to watch our country be destroyed by invasion and third world lawlessness here at home, like is happening in California. What you're witnessing in California is a full-blown assault on peace, on public order, and on national sovereignty carried out by rioters bearing foreign flags with the aim of continuing a foreign invasion of our country. We're not going to let that happen. Very simply, we will liberate Los Angeles and make it free, clean, and safe again. It's happening very quickly. In Los Angeles, the governor of California, the mayor of Los Angeles, they're incompetent, and they paid troublemakers, agitators, and insurrectionists. They're engaged in this willful attempt to nullify federal law and aid the occupation of the city by criminal invaders. These are animals, but they proudly carry the flags of other countries, but they don't carry the American flag. They only burn it. Did you see a lot of the flags being burned? They weren't being burned by people from our country or from people that love our country. People that burn the American flag should go to jail for 1 year.
He chose theatrics over public safety. He federalized another 2,000 Guard members. He deployed more than 700 active U.S. Marines. These are the men and women trained for foreign combat, not domestic law enforcement. If some of us could be snatched off the streets without a warrant, based only on suspicion or skin color, then none of us are safe. Authoritarian regimes begin by targeting people who are least able to defend themselves, but they do not stop there. California may be first, but it clearly will not end here. Other states are next. Democracy is next. Democracy is under assault before our eyes. This moment we have feared has arrived. The rule of law has increasingly been given way to the rule of Don. The founding fathers, they didn't live and die to see this kind of moment. It's time for all of us to stand up.
And that's the governor of California, Gavin Newsom there, and before him, President Trump. Well, for more on this, I'm joined now on the line from California by the political analyst and chief Republican strategist, Erol Morkoc. Good to see you, Erol. What do you make of what's happening in Los Angeles?
Well, I think it's a long time coming for anybody who's been a resident here and has just seen the absolute decline of California over the decades. I've long felt that California is almost a neo-secessionist state in the sense that it has eschewed every single mandate from Washington in some good ways. For example, they said your Clean Air Acts aren't clean enough, so we mandate our own Clean Air Act. So that's a positive way. But then all of a sudden, they started to invent these sanctuary cities. Then they started to have open border policies. And they've brought people into the state just in California that could be 7 to 8 million illegal people. And eventually this has boiled over. The social services and social systems obviously have collapsed. If you look at any interior of any city, whether it be beloved San Francisco or Los Angeles, which are both dangerous places, you wouldn't allow your wife or children to go around in the evening in many areas outside of the very, very wealthy areas. So if you go to Newport Beach, if you go to, down by the marina in San Francisco, you're great. But most people can't afford that. So regular folks have been priced out of using these wonderful places. And eventually it's all come to a head. And as the Democrat Party pushes this pro-illegal immigrant policy, the Republican Party is standing up for the constitutional rights and the civil rights of the everyday Americans in Los Angeles who've been under siege for years and in what has been a very lawless city in many respects in terms of robberies and crimes and increasing street takeovers and these sort of gang-related activities. Add into that the questionable amount of fentanyl that's possibly being consumed and obviously the latent effects on communities. It all comes together to have this head that's been created. And I want to stress that a lot of these people who are protesting, I mean, that's great to get out there and make your voice heard. That's something that we as Americans celebrate, even if we differ in opinions. But there's a very different thing between protesting and lighting cars on fire and throwing bricks at police and doing the behaviors we're seeing. There's protesting and there's rioting. When you see there's rioting, then you have to stand up to them. And if the local government won't protect the people, then the federal government, which has many times in U.S. history come to protect the civil rights of citizens in cities around the world, whether it be when Kennedy sent troops to Alabama and Mississippi to make sure that black students were not going to be denied entry, or when during the Rodney King riots, George H.W. Bush sent troops. So this is all a bit of American repetitive history. It's too bad to see. And if there was no violence, it would not be needed. And I think we see that with Karen Bass having to declare a state of curfew. Obviously, things are not under control. It's sad to see, and it's not going to work well for Gavin Newsom the way he's approaching this. He should be working with us to help us as California citizens, which I am, but instead he's working against the president. It's very sad to see that.
But I mean, if you listen, and obviously we have to listen to both sides, if you listen to the mayor of LA, the governor of California, and other officials, they say the problem was well under control. And in fact, sending in the National Guard and the Marines is what has inflamed the situation.
I have no doubt they would say that. These are the people, of course, who recently had Los Angeles burn, Pacific Palisades burn under their watch. The mayor was off in, I believe, in Ghana during that experience. And Governor Newsom, gosh knows where he is, usually at some sort of fancy dinner party while he's telling everybody to stay at home. So they don't have a lot of credibility. While I can see that they have totally dominated the way the political landscape is in California, and they are the elected officials here, their word is not good to the rest of the American people. And the American people, I mean, this is a union. This is all our country. And Los Angeles has, millions of Trump supporters and millions of many more millions, obviously, Democrat supporters. But those Trump supporters deserve to live, at least if they want to, in a country free of crime and free of illegal I don't want to say immigrants, but illegal invaders, people who I'm a legal immigrant, people who've come here illegally. And if the situation was under control, it would have been under control, but it wasn't under control. They said that they were watching people peacefully burn cars on CNN. How do you peacefully burn cars? How do you peacefully throw rocks at police? And so if nobody's going to stand up for the police, President Trump obviously is, and he's a one-term president. So he doesn't have this is the first time we're actually seeing a president be able to act like this because he knows he doesn't have another term. He doesn't really care. And especially consider the fact that California, the way the Electoral College works, their vote is going Democrat regardless. And as the state turns more and more blue, by the way, because of Hispanic Americans, Trump realizes that Hispanic Americans, like my very patriotic neighbor who's a Hispanic American Marine, who's fully on the side of this, by the way, he came to this country legally and he joined the Marines and he is an American patriot and his daughter goes to school here at UC Davis. It's an incredible, story of somebody in my town who's done very well. And he wants the exact same thing as I do, is these people deported and this kind of lawlessness to stop. And eventually Donald Trump is realizing that California is going to eventually go back to a Republican state, which it used to be under Reagan. And he's making this play to save the people of Los Angeles and obviously to win over the votes here, because people are responding very positively to this outside of the inner cities. People in the suburbs, people who've been excluded from ever using these public spaces are now saying, hey, if this is the direction we can go, if California can get back to a place that at least you can leave your garage door open. And I used to be able to do that here in Davis 10 years ago. I can't do that now. I want to live in a safe city. So as long as the country gets safer, then people are going to come back to it. And if Karen Bass and Gavin Newsom had any ground to stand on, then we wouldn't be here today. But unfortunately, they've lost sort of the leadership right outside of the eyes of their very dedicated supporters, who I think are blind to the situation, because these are not peaceful protests whatsoever. There is a lot of violence, a lot of negativity, and President Trump is going to be a leader and he's going to stop it.
But I mean, Errol, it is a very big step, isn't it, to send in the Marines and the National Guard? I mean, something a president doesn't typically do without the approval or the buy-in of the state governor. I mean, particularly with regard to the Marines, I mean, they are a fighting force, not a crowd control organization. I mean, they're not trained to control a crowd. I mean, does all that ring some alarm bells for you?
No, not at all. And keep in mind, these are very small contingents. We're talking about groups of maybe 800 Marines and 2,700 National Guard. And a lot of what we're doing is a show of force. Now, there are internal training mechanisms for shows of force in these brigades. Obviously, the Marines is a fighting force. But if you are going to be out there throwing Molotov cocktails, if you're going to be, burning buildings, and they tried to make a gasoline trap to entrap the LAPD horse mounted police. I mean, they tried to assault that's a very serious thing. They tried to immolate those people. I mean, these are very crazy people. So if you put the Marines in there, if you put people who are actually serious, I mean, it sends a message that that's not going to be able to continue. Now, do I think the Marines are going to go in there with live rounds? I don't believe so. No, that's probably not going to be the situation. Obviously, there's going to be many layers between them and the front line of that. But if the invaders, which are Trump, how he sees them as the enemy, start shooting, the Marines, and which they are doing, is they're looting right now. And the old phrase is, if they start looting, we start shooting. Right now, nobody's shooting. So we're letting them loot. But if they start shooting, we want to make sure the U.S. Marines and the U.S. Army are there to take care of it, because they're very dangerous gang members. And I want all the people listening to this to realize this started because of Homeland Security and immigration conducting a very large money laundering investigation where they came and swooped in and arrested people who are trafficking money for the cartels. In those nets, they also caught many illegal invaders, and those people were then sort of used as talismans to create what is effectively a color revolution, or attempted color revolution by the Democrat Party in California, which is not going to work. You saw Nancy Pelosi, by the way, lying straight up, saying that Donald Trump didn't call for the National Guard on January 6th, which he did, and it was blocked by Erol Bowser, the mayor of D.C., as well as Nancy Pelosi herself when he asked the Congress. So you can already see the double talk Orwellian speech coming out of the left. This is a political opportunity for them, they think, and it's going to backfire because the American people are sick and tired of this lawlessness. They want peace, they want order, and Donald Trump is going to deliver it.
But I mean, Errol, when you see the rising tide and scale of the protests, not just in Los Angeles, we understand now in some cities, New York, Chicago, Atlanta, where there have been sympathy protests, in fact, across cities in the US. I mean, do you think President Trump and his deputies should be worried about the groundswell of feeling against some of their decisions?
Not at all. In fact, the people who are angry, we certainly have intended to make them angry, because our policies, which we declared, were the ones that they vehemently opposed in the election. All of those cities are cities that go 80-85% Democrat. So yes, in each Democrat hotbed in the country, you're going to have these quote unquote sympathy protests. But as you saw with if you can go all the way back to Occupy Wall Street, you saw what that amounted to. You go to the BLM catastrophes, where billions and billions and billions of dollars of infrastructure in their own communities was burned down to no effect whatsoever. And now you go to this situation. What you really need to wonder is, who is funding all of this? How are all of these people able to do this at a capacity they are? And what you have is a mix of people who are earnestly in that belief structure, and you have a small group of agitators and people who can push the scenario. And those people are hijacking what might be peaceful protests, and everybody is then getting involved in it. So I would suggest those people in that quote unquote groundswell be very careful who they associate with, because if you're caught doing something that escalates into violence, this administration has said they're going to prosecute. You have a right to free speech. You have a right to protest. We welcome that. But that stops when you start burning down police precincts like they did in Seattle 4 years ago, or like they're doing now when they're trying to, light fires and burn down buildings and cars. That's not protesting. That is not peaceful protesting. And trying to make sure that, and without permits and everything, I think the cities are being very lenient, and as cities normally are very lenient, but there has to be a line drawn in the sand when it comes to violence and destruction of property. And if that can be respected, then we welcome anybody's protest, and we're not concerned about it because it shows that this is a free country, this is a democratic country, and your voice can be heard, but your voice can be heard without firebombs and gunshots. And if not, we will send in the troops required to secure our country.
On that note, I want to thank you very much indeed. Erol Morkoc is a political analyst and chief Republican strategist who was talking to me on the line there from California.